The Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus went on with his disciples to the villages of Caesarea Philippi, and on the way, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answered him, "John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others one of the prophets." Jesus asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered him, "You are the Messiah." And he sternly ordered them not to tell anyone about him. Then Jesus began to teach that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. Jesus said all this quite openly, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, Jesus rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." Jesus called the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what will it profit them to gain the whole world and forfeit their life? Indeed, what can they give in return for their life? Those who are ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of them the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." The Gospel of the Lord. I just want to echo what Pastor Sigrid said. We are very grateful at United Lutheran Seminary for the incredible support that this congregation has given to us. We offer full tuition scholarships to every single one of our full-time admitted students. And that blessing is only made possible through this kind of generosity. We have such a shortage of pastors facing the church, and one of the barriers to going to seminary has been the cost for the students, and having them come and not have to incur such great amounts of debt has dramatically increased our student body. And so we think we might be helping to stem that tidal wave of retirements versus new students coming in. And it only happens because of you. So thank you on behalf of the students at the seminary and your student here who is a recipient of one of these full scholarships. Our gratitude. Thank you. Today I'm going to be talking in the sermon about James from based on what I said on the children's sermon. We're going to be talking a little bit about tongues and speaking. And I'm going to start today with a story. Jesus loved to tell stories. He didn't do so much deep theological discussion. Most of the time he told parables and stories. So that's what I'm going to do today. This is a fable, so to speak. There were 3 sons, and they grew up, and they left home, and they went out on their own and prospered. All 3 of them did very well. When they got back together for a meeting, they discussed the gifts they were able to give to their elderly mother, whom they loved very much. The first son said, "I built a big house for our mother." The second son said, "I sent her a Mercedes with a driver." And the third son smiled and said, "I've got you both beat. You remember how Mom enjoyed reading her Bible? And you know, she can't see very well. So I sent her a remarkable parrot that recites the entire Bible. It took elders in the church 12 years to teach this parrot. He's one of a kind. Mama just has to name the chapter and the verse, and the parrot recites it. Soon thereafter, the mother sent out her letters of thanks to her sons. "Milton," she wrote to the first son, "the house you built for me is so huge. I live in only one room, but I have to clean the whole house." "Gerald," she wrote to the second son, "I am too old to travel. I stay most of the time at home, so I rarely use the Mercedes, and the driver is so rude." "Dearest Eldon," she wrote to her third son, "you have the good sense to know what your mother likes." That chicken was delicious. I love this story because it speaks to how we sometimes try to make people happy or accomplish a goal, and it just doesn't work. Or at least it doesn't work out the way we think it will. And furthermore, even if we know the whole Bible upside and down and inside and out, we can still wind up in the oven like that bird. These three boys, all of them wanted to make Mom happy, but she didn't want a bigger house. She didn't want a nice car and a driver or a bird to read her the Bible. All she wanted was a good chicken dinner. By golly, she got it. Today in our Bible lessons and in our children's sermon, we hear about the importance of our tongues. Not for tasting food necessarily or eating chicken dinners, but because of the words that roll off of them. And we hear about Simon Peter, whose tongue so often gets him in hot water. Today we actually hear Jesus call Peter Satan. Peter so much wants to please Jesus, to make Jesus happy, to protect Jesus. Peter wants to give Jesus what Peter thinks he needs, power and protection. Just like the boys in the story genuinely wanted to give their mom what they thought she needed, but what Jesus needed was not what Peter expected. Jesus is going to die. Jesus is going to stick to his convictions and stay true to what he believes, even though it will cost him his life. What Jesus wants from Peter is not protection, and it's not power. What Jesus wants is a faithful follower to walk along with him, even unto death. Jesus wants Peter to take up his own cross and follow. And of course, Peter doesn't do that. At the last hour, Peter uses his tongue to hurt Jesus again. 3 times, Peter denies that he knows Jesus. 3 times, Peter's tongue betrays him. In our lessons, we see that sometimes our best intentions don't work out well, and we hear that a tongue can be a fire that can set a whole forest ablaze. We also hear that our tongues can bring the words of peace and wisdom. What we say, how we choose to use our tongues to bless or curse matters. Now think about that bird in our story from earlier. He had all the right words, didn't he? He had memorized the entire Bible, chapter and verse. Do you think he knew what he was saying? I don't. I don't think he knew what one of those words meant. He was just saying stuff to be saying stuff, and it didn't get him very darn far. He couldn't find the right words when he got thrown in the pot to be made into dinner, because even though he spoke the words, he didn't know what they meant. That's kind of like Peter. He talks a big talk. You are the Messiah. He talks about following Jesus. But he doesn't walk the walk when it counts. Of course, Jesus forgives him, just as Jesus forgives us. When we talk a big talk and then fall flat on our faces. Our calling as Christians is twofold. To choose to speak the right words, but we also need to know what they mean and how to live them out. How to take the good words that roll off of our tongues and put them into good practice. Yes, Jesus, I believe. Yes, Jesus, I will follow. But how? Jesus tells us to take up our cross and follow him. These are some pretty tough words if you get down to it. When we say that we believe in Jesus, we get the words right. But what about the actions? What does it mean to love Jesus? What does it mean to pick up the cross, not just in word, but also in deed? Let's think about what matters most to us in life. What matters? Those people, places, items which we put before God. How can we tell what they are? I always check and ask myself by looking at my time, my calendar, and looking at my money, both of which are gifts from God. Look at how we spend our time. We can learn what it is that we truly love. What has become our God? Look at how we spend our money, and we can learn what it is that we truly love, what it is that has become our God. Does time with God come first, or is it an afterthought, squeezed in? When was the last time we learned something new about the Bible, something really new? Are we too busy to learn more about God's Word? What about our money? Does money go to God first, or do we give what's left over? Do the budget and then, oh, we've got this much left. Sometimes, too many times, I put God second, or third, or last. Shame on me. I want to do better, and I hope you do too. I don't want to be like that ridiculous bird, quoting the Bible and not living according to it or having a clue about what it means. I want to pick up my cross and follow Jesus, even when the road is rough. I want you to be my companions on the way, even when the stones are sharp and the way is hard. I want us here at Trindle Springs, us here in Lower Susquehanna Synod, us here in Pennsylvania, to put God first as much as we can, as often as we can. I want to confess our faith in words and in deeds. And I am so grateful that we have a God who, when we are like that silly bird, babbling away without a clue, will not stick us in the pot, but will set us back up on our feet, the same as Jesus did with Simon Peter, and say, you are a stumbling block at times. You get confused, but you I will forgive, and on you I will build my church. Let us pick up our crosses then and be the humble and mighty church in word and in deed, in service to all the world. Amen.